They said it was just a request, a simple favor for a neighbor's kid. But one casual demand quickly twisted into a full-blown nightmare. Suddenly, police lights flashed in my driveway, letters arrived from the HOA, and threats that felt impossibly real were landing on my doorstep. All over a Harley I've loved for over a decade. How far would someone go to take what's rightfully mine? And what would I have to do to stop them? Little did I know, this was only the beginning. The real chaos was about to hit my quiet neighborhood. Mornings were simple for me. I'd step onto my porch with a cup of coffee, the sun warming my back, the Harley resting under the old oak tree beside my garage, humming softly from the ride the day before. That bike wasn't just metal and chrome. It was 12 years of memories, weekend escapes, and quiet moments when the world felt mine alone. Life was predictable, comfortable, the kind of calm that lets you breathe easy. I'd waved to neighbors, heard kids laughing down the street, and watched the occasional dog trot along the sidewalks. Nothing ever disturbed that rhythm. Nothing. Except the occasional HOA memo reminding everyone of rules no one really cared about. Until the day it wasn't so harmless. It started subtly. A shadow at the edge of my driveway, a teenager standing there like he owned the place. "I'll take that one," he said, nodding toward my Harley. I laughed, thinking it was a joke, until I saw the seriousness in his eyes, and the woman behind him, arms crossed, sunglasses on, radiating entitlement. Karen, HOA queen, self-appointed, enforcer of neighborhood order. Something about the way she stood there made my stomach tighten. This wasn't going to be a normal conversation. And in that moment, I realized my peaceful morning was about to spiral into something far bigger and far stranger than I could have imagined. What happened next would turn an ordinary Saturday into a fight I never saw coming. This sets up your character, stakes, and first hint of conflict while ending on a cliffhanger that naturally leads into the rising action. It started innocently enough, or so I thought. The teen had walked onto my driveway, pointed at my Harley, and said those fateful words. "I'll take that one. Mom said you'd give it to me." I laughed, assuming it was some awkward joke. But the kid didn't laugh back. He stood there, arms folded, eyes fixed on the bike like it was his birthright. Behind him, Karen, HOA royalty, self-appointed sheriff of the cul-de-sac, stood with that signature glare, sunglasses reflecting the morning sun like a warning signal. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to keep my tone light, even as a knot tightened in my stomach. "That's my son's," she said, voice sharp. "And you're supposed to give it to him. The board agrees. It's a community issue." My heart sank. Not because of her demands, but because I could already feel how absurd this was about to become. 12 years of memories, weekends on. Open roads, the growl of my Harley echoing like freedom itself. She wanted to take it, for a 16-year-old boy, with nothing more than a wave of authority from the HOA. I tried reason. "I ride it every weekend, it's mine. I've had it for 12 years. It's not just a bike, it's part of me." Karen didn't flinch. "The neighborhood deserves peace. The noise bothers people. You should donate it to someone who would appreciate it. Your son doesn't ride anymore, do you?" Her smirk made my blood boil. "He's turning 17. It's perfect." I laughed, disbelief catching my breath. "You've lost your mind." But Karen's expression hardened. "Fine," she said. "If you won't comply, I'll escalate." At the time, I didn't know what she meant. That Saturday morning, after a short ride, I pulled into my driveway. Sun on my back, fresh air still in my lungs, Harley humming like it always did. I barely had time to set down my helmet before the sirens hit. A chorus of red and blue lights, cutting across the oak's shadow. 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop, doors flinging open, officers moving with caution, hands hovering near their belts. "Sir, step away from the motorcycle," one barked. "Excuse me?" My pulse raced. "Step away from my bike?" "Local resident reports stolen property," the officer said, flipping open a notepad. Claims you unlawfully took possession of a motorcycle belonging to her minor son. I froze. My Harley. Mine. For 12 years. Proof of ownership inside. Karen emerged from across the street, smug grin intact, her son trailing like he owned the day. That's the one, she shouted, pointing like it was a crime scene. He promised to give it to my son. I wanted to laugh, but the officers weren't amused. Do you have proof of ownership? Yeah, I said, walking toward the house, heart hammering. Inside, I grabbed the registration, the title, and the memories tied to every scratch, every custom part I'd added over the years. Here, I said, handing it over. Been mine for 12 years. Karen's smirk wavered. Her son scowled, disbelief written across his face. He said I could have it. I shook my head. No such thing. By then, the police were visibly frustrated. They'd dealt with absurd complaints before, but this was something else. Karen tried another angle. Fraud. Misrepresentation. Emotional distress. But the officers left annoyed, shaking their heads, and Karen stomped back to her house, with her miniature entourage. 3 days later, an HOA letter appeared, taped to my door. Violations, community disruption, verbal harassment, accusations, claims that stretched the imagination and tested my patience. She wasn't just angry, she was weaponizing the entire board. I laughed at first, then slowly it sank in. This wasn't about a Harley anymore. This was about ego, control, and a twisted sense of entitlement. I made a call, not to Karen, not to the HOA. Mark, state attorney's office. Old friend from a veterans group. I explained everything, from the first encounter to the bogus police call to the HOA letter. Mark's voice carried the calm authority I needed. She's trying to weaponize the HOA to force a private property transfer. That's harassment, civil coercion, possibly worse. Gather everything, photos, timestamps, letters, even your doorbell footage. I spent the next day building my arsenal. Doorbell cam footage of the teen pointing at the Harley. The police report confirming no wrongdoing. HOA letters stacked like evidence in a courtroom. I even wrote a full statement detailing every interaction, every absurd claim Karen had made, every escalation. The following week, Karen tried again, this time in person at the community park, hoping to pressure me in front of neighbors. You don't have to be difficult, she said. Just do the right thing. I smiled. Calm, collected, armed with evidence. The right thing is respecting my property, and the law agrees with me. Her jaw tightened. Her son scowled. Other neighbors whispered, glancing between us, realizing for the first time that Karen's perfect neighborhood facade had a dark side. The tension escalated further when another HOA notice appeared, citing community disruption and failure to maintain proper neighborly conduct. Each word a thinly veiled threat, each line designed to pressure me into surrender. I kept my cool, compiling, documenting, and preparing. Every absurd claim she made became fuel for my defense. Every overstep of authority a reminder that I wasn't alone. I had the law on my side. Evenings became tense, filled with the hum of the Harley in the garage, the shadow of red letters on my doorstep, and the constant thought, how far would she go? How much could the HOA bend the rules to suit one woman's ego? But I wasn't going to back down, not now, not ever. Because this wasn't just about a Harley. It was about standing up to someone who thought entitlement could replace evidence, power could replace ownership, and intimidation could replace truth. And as the weekend faded into Monday, I realized the real storm hadn't even hit yet. Karen had played her opening hand, but the final play, the one that would determine who truly controlled the outcome, was still ahead. The next confrontation would take me into a room full of authority, neighbors, and the kind of scrutiny I had never faced before, and it was about to get personal. This rising action builds tension through repeated escalation. Teen, Karen, HOA, police, letters, while keeping fast pacing, sensory details, emotional stakes, and suspense. It ends on a rehook hinting at the climax, the formal showdown. Thursday evening, the HOA meeting room buzzed with quiet chatter. Folding chairs lined the walls, neighbors shifting in their seats, murmurs bouncing off fluorescent lights. I arrived early, folder in hand, calm but alert. Karen was already there, perched at the front like a queen defending her court. Her son sat beside her, arms crossed, scowl fixed, clearly expecting me to fold under pressure. The meeting began. Bill, the HOA president, cleared his throat and called for new business. Karen's hand shot up immediately. "I'd like to formally request action against Mr. Owens for failure to fulfill a verbal commitment," she said, voice sharp, eyes sweeping the room as if every neighbor were her jury. "Intentional community disturbance and inappropriate conduct during interactions with myself and my son." All eyes turned toward me. My pulse quickened, but I didn't flinch. Karen continued, painting herself as the wronged mother, her son as the innocent victim, and me as the rogue homeowner refusing to play by community standards. She spoke with dramatic flair, recounting my supposed lies, my hostile attitude, and even hinting at concerns about my mental state. Whispers stirred through the room, neighbors glancing uncomfortably. Finally, Bill turned to me. "Mr. Owens, would you like to respond?" I stood, placing my folder firmly on the table. The room fell silent. I opened it slowly, letting the weight of the evidence speak before I did. "First," I said, voice steady, "I never promised your son anything." I handed over doorbell cam screenshots, time-stamped images of the teen pointing at my Harley, declaring, "Mom said you'd give it to me." Next, I passed a copy of the police report showing no wrongdoing. Then the letter from the state attorney confirming your complaint was baseless. Murmurs rippled across the room. Karen's smug expression faltered. Her son looked like the world had just betrayed him. I didn't stop. Copies of the HOA's own violation notice were laid out, along with my notarized statement detailing her pattern of harassment. Each document landed like a hammer on her claims. Bill adjusted his glasses, whispering to another board member. "We weren't aware of these details." "Oh, there's more," I said, scanning the room. "Each letter, each threat, every complaint filed against me was without merit. I've documented it all. This isn't just about me, it's about the abuse of HOA authority to intimidate and harass a neighbor." Silence fell. Karen's face went pale. Her theatrics dissolved under the weight of evidence. The room's energy shifted, whispers turned to nods, glances of disbelief now pointed at her. "Enough," Bill said firmly, raising his hand. "We'll review this in full, but based on what we're seeing, it appears there has been a misuse of the HOA complaint process." Karen opened her mouth, but the room's attention silenced her. She had no words. Her last-minute attempt to manipulate the board crumbled in real time. Her son, arms still crossed, stared down at his lap, defeated. I took a deep breath, chest tight but controlled. For the first time in weeks, I felt the tension in my shoulders release. I'd stood my ground, not out of ego, but out of principle. My Harley, my property, and my peace of mind were intact, and justice finally had a chance to prevail. But just when I thought the storm had passed, Karen had one last move. 3 days later, a letter arrived. Not from the HOA, not from the police, from a law firm, a cease and desist, claiming I'd emotionally misled a minor, caused distress, and demanding I surrender the Harley or face civil action. I stared at it, disbelief giving way to clarity. She wasn't finished. This wasn't about the bike anymore. This was about control, pride, and an ego unwilling to accept defeat. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. She had underestimated me. I wasn't just a homeowner with a Harley. I had evidence. I had the law on my side, and I was ready to fight back harder than she could ever imagine. The battle wasn't over, but the tables were turning, and for the first time I could see the path to victory. The next few days would seal the outcome, not just for me, but for every neighbor who had ever faced Karen's wrath, and for my Harley, the symbol of my freedom and persistence. The week after the HOA meeting felt surreal. No more letters, no more smug waves from Karen across the lawn, no police surprises at my driveway. Silence. Peace. My Harley still sat under the oak tree, gleaming in the afternoon sun like nothing had changed. But everything had. The neighborhood was buzzing, though in a different way. Whispers of what had happened spread like wildfire. People who had once avoided conflict with Karen began sharing their own stories. Small grievances, silent annoyances, moments of intimidation that now seemed part of a larger pattern. And for the first time, I realized this fight had been bigger than me. It wasn't just about a bike or a single overbearing neighbor. It was about standing up to someone who had weaponized power and authority for her own ego. Karen never showed her face again at the HOA. The board, now aware of the depth of her manipulations, moved quickly. Petitions circulated, signatures gathered, and within weeks she was voted out, removed from the HOA for misuse of authority and harassment. Her son? Quiet, withdrawn, a shadow of the defiance he had shown when he first pointed at my Harley. For me, life returned to its familiar rhythm. Morning rides, the hum of the engine under my hands, coffee on the porch, simple pleasures that now carried a heavier sense of triumph. Every rev of the engine felt like a small victory, a reminder that reason, preparation, and persistence can outweigh intimidation and entitlement. Yet, the incident left its mark beyond the surface. I understood now how fragile peace can be in a neighborhood where rules can be twisted to serve someone's pride, how quickly normalcy can turn to chaos, and how important it is to stand firm, document everything, and never underestimate the power of knowledge and evidence. I thought about the neighbors who had watched silently, afraid to confront Karen in the past. They had learned a lesson too. Courage can be contagious, and even one person standing up for what's right can ignite change. Community isn't built on fear, rules, or blind authority. It's built on respect, fairness, and the courage to defend what matters. As for Karen, she faded into quiet irrelevance. The neighborhood slowly returned to its routine, but the story of her overreach lived on. And for me, that Harley wasn't just a motorcycle anymore. It was a symbol. Freedom, yes, but also resilience, patience, and the reward of standing your ground when everything else tries to convince you to back down. I still ride every weekend. The hum of the engine, the wind against my face, and the sunlight glinting off chrome remind me that some things are worth protecting fiercely. And that, when someone tries to take what belongs to you, your property, your peace, your dignity, it's not just about winning the argument. It's about proving that justice, preparation, and resolve can turn the tide against even the most overbearing adversaries. So, when I hear the distant echo of a neighbor complaining or see the faint shadow of entitlement trying to claim more than it deserves, I smile. Because I know this. A single person standing firm can shift the balance, not just for themselves, but for everyone watching, and it begs the question, when faced with someone who thinks rules give them power over you, when intimidation becomes their weapon, what would you do? Would you stay silent? Or would you stand and make sure they know, finally, that some things are untouchable? This resolution ties up the story, reflects on the personal and communal impact, and ends with a strong rhetorical question that encourages viewer reflection.